All right, welcome to our new show. I'm Tad the Diet Coach, and I have one of my clients, but also a good friend now, and my new co-host, Nigel Lomax. Nigel, welcome.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Funny thing is, like before we started working together, and I was sort of mentioning this on social media today, I really sort of enjoyed each week when we do our check-ins, I enjoy our conversations about bodybuilding and about the industry and about different competitors, and you have such a good perspective on who's coming up and who's doing this and who looks like this and all this stuff, and you keep up with all this stuff so well. I thought, man, well, let's just share this great information, share this sort of some of these conversations with everybody else about contests and about results and about some of our predictions and also some of our insights about the industry. I thought that was really good. So that's why when you and I were tossing around names, I kind of thought, it might be a little bit of a misnomer because people know me as like a very positive sort of in person, and I'm always focused on the positive, my happy bubble stuff. But so the name could seem a little like it throws people off because it's just a tad low. I thought I was being slick with using part of your last name.
Well, yeah, I do have a cooler last name than I do a first name, so I can completely see that, and it goes well with both of our personalities in a way. So
yeah, and as we've had conversations about different competitors, and then it turns out you know quite a few people, and you've been around the industry. You and I are the same age, and if you don't mind me telling everybody that we're both old guys, hang around this but you know quite a few of the competitors as well. You're friends with a lot of them, and a lot of the pros, and a lot of people in New York and all these places. So it was it'll give us some really good material to talk about some of these things. Like today, the format of the show, I'm trying to leave, and you and I will sort of, I think, organically allow the show to become what it will become, because I want it to be fun. And I wanted to reflect some of the really wonderful conversations and fun conversations that we've had about the industry, about bodybuilding, about the different competitors. But also, I want it to be entertaining for people. Hopefully, they'll find as much fun that we're having. So maybe we're the only ones that'll have fun. I don't know. So either way, it won't matter, right?
But I think. Well, the other thing is, I think that our conversations have always been like really positive, right, as well. And so any type of critique that we have of people, it's pretty much about positivity and everything. It's not that we're hating on anybody. It's just that, this is our critique, and, we have a huge amount of respect for any of the competitors, whether or not you're amateur or you're pro. So,
yeah. And I think,
great respect for them.
And I know from being a competitor for so many years, as well as being a coach for so many years, that the only way that competitors ever get better is with an honest critique, with an honest criticism. And I hate to use the word criticism because it sometimes gets a bad rap, but in this context, criticism is good because it allows competitors and athletes to know what it is that they need to work on, what kinds of improvements they need to make, and more importantly, how judges and how fans really, really see them. Because whether they see themselves a certain way is really immaterial compared to the way everybody else does, because that's the judgment that they're being ranked and judged on in the industry and on judging panels and in their fan base. So you kind of I think it's important for them to be able to at least know some of that. I don't know if it necessarily needs to dictate the path of their progress all the time, but I do think that it's a worthy note so that people can understand why they're fans, and maybe people who aren't their fans see them a certain way based on their physique. I think personally, I think criticisms are wonderful tools that we can use to improve our performance on the stage, but also understand ourselves better. So
I completely agree, and to me, like, criticism is not necessarily that it comes from a place of hate. I hear a lot of bodybuilders or just people in general saying, well, somebody disagrees with me, so they're being a hater. Right. That's not necessarily true. Yeah, there's going to be some people in your life that are just complete haters, and I get that. But most of the time in bodybuilding, especially, nobody's really hating on you at all. It's just that, there's a certain amount of standard that is supposed to be in bodybuilding, and there's a certain look that people want to see, that Arnold and some other people have stated that they want to see in some of these contests. And when you don't have that look and everything, somebody should point out the fact that you don't have the look and what you can do to get better. So, but the whole thing is pointing it out and saying how you can get better, not pointing it out and just being critical of you and saying you're never going to get better or you can't get better. So,
yeah, I think the industry is the industry and the fans at times are sort of notorious for being very highly critical, which is good, and also can sometimes lend itself to really feeling very negative. Because, like you said, they're not really giving. It's not really done So when I give criticisms to competitors, I want to recognize some of the good qualities of their physiques. That some things are getting right, some things that's going good for them, but also provide a critique that will allow them to see a pathway to improve their physique, to improve what they're doing on stage or how they're presenting themselves, because that's really, really important in terms of always making forward progress in the sport, because there's always people coming up, getting better and better and better. And if I've been floating around this sport for so long, and I know that if we just compare physiques of, like, say, 25 years ago to today, wow, we really have, some really incredible physiques today that really sometimes get almost unnoticed compared to if they were standing on stage 25 years ago.
Definitely. And I completely agree with you on that one, because, it's just like we were talking today and you were saying how the way that I pose my back is not efficient and it doesn't look physically great. It's not appealing. And I never thought about it in the way that you had me imagine it, like it's a stretching exercise more so than it's a flexing exercise.
Right.
So I think that when you explain it to people that it's a stretching exercise, so your relaxed poses are really stretching exercises and everything. They're not meant to flex. I think we all forget that is not a flex pose. That is a relaxing pose.
Well, I think,
and I forget it all the time. So, that was great criticism.
I think the common, when it comes to posing, just the word pose, lends itself to flexing, right? It's there. When you think of a front double bicep or a most muscular pose, it's a pose, right? Your muscles are flexed and your legs and your arms, your chest, your abs. But some poses are stretches, like certain muscle groups at least. So, for instance, the back. In order to get width out of the back, you have to stretch it out. It can't be flexed. Because a flexed muscle, a contracted muscle, is the fibers contract, they get shorter. And you don't want a shortened back muscle, you want an elongated musculature, so that way you can show off the width. And while there's certain things like biceps and triceps and shoulders, you want to shorten them because they'll ball up and it actually lends itself to those poses. The back doesn't do this as well with like a back relaxed or a lat spread, for instance, is a great example of when you do a lat spread, you're not really flexing the lats. You're actually opening them up and stretching them. So you're flexing your legs, you might even be flexing your shoulders and maybe even your chest. Some people are able to do that, but you're not flexing your back, which is kind of ironic because It is a back pose. But yeah, so today, after this is sort of our initial or our first episode of this. I keep wanting in my head to call it the Tad Low Report, but I don't know why.
Well, that works as well. Except there's a Ron line report, so I don't want to steal Ron's thunder. So
what does he call it?
He calls his the Ron Line report for MD. So there's an MD plug for you.
Well, I didn't know he had a report.
Oh yeah, he has one every week, and he does interviews and some other stuff. So that's the stuff that I listen to when you have me do 45 minutes of treadmilling.
Oh, the fun stuff, right?
RX muscle, all the rest of the stuff. I'm a big fan of bodybuilding, so 45 minutes it's either bodybuilding or Netflix, or of course I have to do that 3 prayers a day, so it's a great time to meditate and pray as well.
Absolutely.
Or like pray that this is over with.
Nah, cardio's fun. It's awesome, right? It's fun. I miss that. Those are some of the things I miss about my competitive days. Not
exactly, especially when you because I suffer that Achilles and everything. And now it's better. But before, that was rough. There's nothing like that. It was, especially on an incline. So I'm very happy that got better. So.
Do you have now? Do you wear? I never asked you this, but do you wear different shoes when you do cardio? And because I would just recommend doing like recumbent bike or something instead, so you don't have to actually be on your feet.
I actually wear different shoes now. I used to wear. We were talking about this earlier. Nikes. Because everybody wears Nikes, it seems like.
Right.
And I used to wear Nikes, and it turns out that my foot is so flat. And for anybody who has really, really flat feet, Nikes are not the way to go. None of the Nikes are ways to go with flat-footed people. Just don't do it. It will actually screw up your Achilles and your fascia a lot quicker to wear those. So you want to go with a different sort of shoe, like the Reebok trainer actually has a lot of support in it for that. And there's a OQ that, has a trainer out as well. And, some New Balances, which, I know everybody's not really cool with the New Balances or the Cloud.
I'm not a shoe guy. So as you know, I'm not a shoe guy. So I don't know all the trends in terms of what's stylish, but the shoes I wear, I just wear them for functional purposes, and I would like them to look good. I'm hoping that they look good.
Well, if Nathan DeAsher actually, listens to this, he might, want to up your shoe game, because every week I see that he buys a new pair of shoes. That guy, along with Dexter, must have a shoe collection that is ridiculous.
Well, I know.
I mean, it must be amazing.
I know Phil also has a pretty immense shoe collection. It's a couple thousand pair from when I last heard. To me, that's an investment right there. That's like another, when I was a kid, I always wanted to have a collection of something like stamps or like coins. But I never imagined that we would get to an age where people would actually collect shoes and they wouldn't even wear them. Like every time I have bought a shoe, I wear it. It's but I totally get it. I
don't understand that. You get it, but to me, I would rather spend that money traveling. So, and I know a lot of people don't love to travel, but I love to travel, and I love to take pictures of my travels and stuff like that. So, I would reallocate all of that to my travel fund, but but then again, I have a lot of clothes. So my ex can tell you that I could probably open up my own clothing store. So I guess I shouldn't talk. but when you're 5'4", and
that's right.
189 pounds, you have to buy stuff in bulk. When you find something, you buy it a lot.
I remember. These days my clothing shopping is easier, but because I'm not as big as I used to be. I don't really want to be, but I remember I'm 5'7", and I was routinely 245 to 270. Those were my the range of the weight that I was typically in the off season. And man, I could just had such a hard time. I remember being in my mid to late 20s, being on the upper end of that scale, and it was just so hard. I was, of course, lucky for me during that time. The crazy wear, the baggy MC Hammer pants kind of things were very popular. So I was well stocked in that kind of shit, and the spandex. I had all the Bumblebee, striped, leotard spandex for the gym. I wore that shit. That was what I was. Oh yeah, you didn't see me sporting all that stuff, man. I threw them away, man. I wish I wouldn't have, man. I totally wish I wouldn't have thrown that stuff away. But because I would have loved to be able to go show up in the gym these days with some of that stuff on. I can still fit into it, I
bet. Actually, there's a guy at my gym. This is no lie. He has to be. I think he's older than me, and he actually wears old school those parachute gym pants every day, and one of those towel cut off shirts a la Mike Tyson. And the guy is just hardcore as hell. He doesn't even he doesn't look at you. He doesn't grunt. He doesn't smile. He doesn't even wear earphones.
Oh.
And he just goes through his whole, thing. I don't know, he went back to the 70s and 80s. It's hilarious. But, you don't even talk to him. Everybody's afraid of him. Oh. We don't know what's going on with him. Yeah, we're afraid of him because those pants are just really loud. So we all stay away from.
Well, hey, watch out because the styles are cyclical, right? They come back, and you never know, man.
I'm not wearing that. No, Tad. I am a proud gay man. I cannot do that. No self-respecting gay would do that. No.
There was a lot of stuff I said I'd never do. I think I don't know. Maybe I would. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know.
Well, can anybody tell me whether or not Bob Parris has ever worn those pants?
Oh, I don't know. Gosh.
Because if Bob Parris has worn those pants, I will wear those pants.
What is Bob doing these days? I don't know what he's doing these days.
I don't know what Bob does these days, but I mean, if Bob wears those pants, if somebody knows where Bob is, and Bob, if there's a shot of him in those pants, I will bring them back.
It's kind of cool, actually. Speaking of Bob, Bob Parris was always one of my favorite bodybuilders growing up in the sport in the '80s and the '90s, of course. And I thought, he would have made really. I think he would have done really well in classic these days, even though his physique would. But he's heavier than he looks. I know it. I know he's. I want to say when he competed, he was close to 240 or in that range. And so I think he was 235. Yeah, something like that. So, but from an aesthetic perspective and the way he liked to do bodybuilding, it would have been good. But I think he could have dropped down because the level of conditioning in the 90s, early 90s and 80s, he could have compared to today, what athletes get into today. His weight would have probably been in the high twos, like maybe 225, 230 max. And he might have been able to get, I don't even know what the deadline is for his height. I think, was he 5'9", 5'10"?
He's 5'9", so he'd be about, let's see, I think Regan is 5'10", and Regan was 220, I think. So he could have somewhere around there. So.
He could have got in there.
Yeah, because they actually upped the weight this year, so the weight is a little different. But I always admired Bob Parris, growing up. One, because of his physique, and two, he was the only out bodybuilder other than oh my gosh, he is Richardson. So
I didn't know that.
Out of that. So those two, because Richardson won the Olympia, and then Dickerson won the Olympia. And then Dickerson won the Olympia, and then he came out, I think, not too far after that. And then Bob came out once he retired as well. So for a gay bodybuilder, those two were the two that you actually looked up to. And they had such great physiques and everything, and their presentation was so authoritative and masculine and just beautiful that that I totally looked up to them because of the way that they carried themselves and everything else. So,
I want to say
I grew up looking to it.
I want to say it was like 84 Olympia, could have been 83, could have been 82. I don't remember exactly. It was early 80s. It was one of the ones that I think it was probably 80. I want to say 84, and Lee Haney won. And so it could have been 84, 85, something like that. Anyways, Chris Dickerson was in it, and I remember his pose routine. He did it to, I believe it was I think it was a instrumental routine. It was a famous sort of piece from, I think, Sigmund's Funeral and Death March, something like that. I think it was awesome. Oh, man. Wow. It was friggin' awesome. I was like, that was, out of all the routines I've ever seen, that was one of the ones that always inspired me. So kind of funny you say that, because I was like, wow, I take that back. One other guy too, Makawi. He competed that year too, and his routine was even better. It was awesome. It was like,
well, actually, as far as posing routines and everything, and great posers, Lee Labrada is my favorite, hands down. I mean, Lee Labrada is awesome to me. I mean, he is exactly the way somebody should pose. And nowadays, right now, I have to say that Zane right now is a great poser. I mean, I saw him at the New York Pro and was completely mesmerized by his posing. Of course, I don't think he needs to be in 212. He needs to go into open, but that's my personal opinion. But he's got one of those very classical posing routines and everything. And everything is exactly perfect and spot on.
Well, speaking of which, like this today, actually, as we record this, the Tampa Pro started today, and they did the 212 division. So we'll talk a bit about that today. Talk about what we saw. At least, not, again, I'm not there, so I didn't get to see this firsthand. So we're just commenting based on pictures and some history. But it looks like as we speak, the 212 division's already been awarded, and I guess Nicholas Prelude, am I pronouncing his last name right?
Yep, that is correct.
He won kind of a cakewalk. From what I can see in the pictures, his physique is really quite a nice physique. Although you mentioned earlier that you didn't think he was quite as sharp as he was several weeks ago when he competed last.
Yeah, I thought he looked better at Portugal when he was up against Heidi Shipon. But I mean, he's one of my favorite 212s. I like the freaks. I'm a Rolly fan, and this guy is the Rolly 212 because he is just freaky.
How tall is he?
I know everybody loves. He's got to be about 5'5", 5'4", 5'5".
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a very tall guy, and the only knock I have on him is whoever is doing his tanning, they really need to darken him up. Because he kind of loses everything. He's like really white and very pale on stage. He might have some problems like Dennis Wolf, where Dennis Wolf had to have a lot of like tanning on, and I think Nicholas, even though he's not as fair as Dennis, I think that they need to have a different tanning product because it really doesn't show off exactly what he has and everything. And then the second thing would be his lower back. His lower back needs to be more developed and everything, but that comes with age. This guy's in his late 20s, I believe. And so I think that's an age thing and just getting his back in tuned and everything. And also the posing, especially when you have that good of glute development. I mean, if you look at his glutes are crazy.
Yeah.
And then his legs are crazy. And then, it's all,
Where's he from? Do you know where he's from? I don't know much about him.
Yeah, he's from Switzerland.
Okay. Well, I mean, I knew that, but he lives there, right?
Yeah, no, he lives in Switzerland. Okay. He's trained by Patrick Tudor.
Okay, cool. Well,
the guy who used to train Hide.
Okay. So he ended up looks like he ended up winning the 212 division here at the Tampa Pro, and then of course there was second and third place. Oswald Gonzalez, he got third, right?
Right. So,
and then Derek Oslin got second, right? Which kind of which when I look at again, I'm just looking at pictures. I didn't see at the show. When I look at the pictures, I see. I might have those two places reversed, but what did you see?
I actually agreed with Oswaldo being second.
Okay.
And the reason for that is he just has a really beautiful physique. He does need more mass, but I thought his conditioning was spot on. I did see the video of it, and he poses very well. And I think that's what actually did it for him was his posing. He was a lot better than Osmond.
Oh, okay. Well, Oswaldo is, I guess, Oswaldo Gonzalez, right?
Right.
He to me, out of the top three, he looked crispier. He just looked tighter to me. Like I appreciate that more than obviously you got to have size, you got to have a certain degree of fullness and stuff. But I don't know. I like the quality of the muscle. The only problem I think is that his legs overpower his upper body just slightly.
I completely agree with you. Yeah.
So from that standpoint, Derek Oslin, he kind of has a little bit better balance, even though I think his arms are fucking tiny, man. I'm sorry. I think his arms need to be about an inch bigger.
I thought Oslin not only was that a problem, but I also thought he was softer. Because I had Oslin and Dollar very close. The only reason why I didn't give it, because I thought Dollar actually had better muscle maturity, and his muscle was a lot fuller. But the problem was when he went to the back, especially the mid portion of his back to the bottom part of his back needed to be tightened up. So he was carrying water, especially during prejudging, and I think prejudging did him in because of that.
Oh, well, top three kind of cool, but for me, what's more interesting was a couple other people in the lineup that didn't make the top 3 or 4 or 5, and that was I was really hoping that Silvio Samuel would make a nice splash. I was hoping he would do better. I don't know where he placed. Do you know? I think he was out of the top 5, right?
Yeah, he was out of the top 5. I think he placed in 8th, somewhere around there. Here's the thing about Silvio. I think Silvio can come all the way back. He just needs another couple of years.
Yeah, he doesn't look good. He didn't look
a lot of shows.
Yeah, he just didn't look. To me, he looks like a little drawn in. He doesn't look full. His muscles don't look as healthy in terms of the fullness that I'd like to see. I remember seeing, 10 or whatnot over 10 years ago. Because he had such he was always just consistently placing well. He's got lots of great balance to his physique, but it looked like he kind of, I don't know, there's something going on. He looked a little small in the chest to me this time around that I hadn't been used to seeing. But it could just be just the pictures that I've seen. But he just looked like he might be a little bit, maybe he was a little over dieted. I don't know. Maybe it was too many shows this year. I don't know if he's done a couple, right?
He's done 3 shows actually this year. So he's done a lot of shows. I believe he did Indy. I believe he did the New York Pro,
right, and
he did this show. So he's done 3 shows to try to get qualification, and he's working with Charles Glass right now. To me, I don't think he's a good fit for 212. I think he needs to be an open class because I think he needs to fill out. I think 212 sucks him down too much. I understand why he's doing it. And this could be a way to you take baby steps, you go to the 212 and then you from there, because he's been laid off, then you go into the open. But I think he's better suited for the open than he is a 212 competitor. Just like I would compare him to Hide, where I thought Hide was a better open competitor than he was a 212.
Well, some competitors, even though they may be able to fit into a division or a class, they shouldn't. I know I always felt like that was my case when I competed. Judges and different people who were giving me suggestions on where to come in at, they always wanted me to push down to the light heavyweight class, and I did most of the time. But I always looked better, I felt, coming in fuller and bigger, even though something changed for me when I had to really, because I think, and most of the pictures that I get most of my comments on in terms of how good I looked, they were always when I was about in the 5 weeks out, usually 5-6 weeks out, and I was about 216 to 218 pounds. I looked like I was stage ready, but I would continue to push down to get down to 198 a quarter, and I would always skim in there just barely, and then be on stage at about 201 or so. But it was never sometimes with competitors, the quality of the physique changes. It gets angular, muscles get angular, they don't look as full. And sometimes some people, they can do it. But other people like myself and maybe Silvio is the same way. I think he loses some of that roundness because that was for me, whenever I saw him on stage over 10 years ago, it was this roundness. It was this nice structure that he's got, and it comes out. His muscles look nice. They pop nicely. And when you really suck down, you lose some of that sometimes, I think, for some people.
I completely agree. It's kind of like, I heard an interview with Nicholas that said that he was ready to go at 220 pounds. So Nicholas is a competitor that's kind of like Flex Lewis,
right.
I think, where they could very well step into the open and have no problems. But and there was a rumor that this was his last year. He was going to be like Milan, where he was going to go ahead and switch over to open, which I think Milan is having a little bit of trouble with open because he can't put on enough weight. His stature is not filling out as quickly. It's going to take him a little bit of time. But Nicholas did an interview not too long ago that said that that basically he's not going to do that. He's going to stay at the 212s for another couple of years. And I think that's a great decision for him, even though it kills him to make that weight. But I think that it's much like flex, because flex says it kills him to make 212. But I guarantee you that Nicholas would look just phenomenal if he went down to 210. The same sort of theory that I have with Tank Dixon, where these guys have plenty of muscle and everything, and their muscle is very bubbly. It's very full muscle. Nicholas has full muscle, and so does Tank Dixon. That if they come down to 210, they're just going to look just completely shredded and crazy. So I mean, those two physiques can fit into that. They just have to suffer.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think there's sometimes some of these guys they end up looking better, some don't. Like we said before, I think you're right about Charles, about Tank. I think Charles will look better, smaller. More than likely, Nicholas will too. I don't know. Hard to say. He has one thing I do notice about his physique, and it's this way with a lot of guys like Jose Raymond, Charles Dixon, although it's not quite as prevalent with Charles as it is with Nicholas and with Jose, is that their muscles blend together. They don't have the deep separation. But these are also the same guys who tend to have those bubbly muscles, those really thickly muscled. They tend to be able to their muscles tend to get not overdeveloped, but so developed and all the way around that you lose the sharpness between the muscle groups. You lose the separation. You lose this nice quality that people like Silvio have, people like Dexter Jackson has, and when they get bigger, they kind of sort of accentuates it. Bill Heath is a great example of somebody who has this really wonderful separation. And even when he's not even though he shows up always in shape, even if he were not to show up in his best shape, he would probably still have that quality to his muscles. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the difference between him and Kai. Right there is the reason why Kai hasn't beaten him right there. I fully believe that, it's just that 3D sort of quality of muscle, bubbly shape, separation and everything.
Right.
And I think, that's what makes Phil, people disagree with, some of the outcomes and everything like that. But if you look at it from head to toe, and that's what, I say to people, you got to look at it head to toe. It's not,
there's also
just the back.
Yeah,
it's got to be fluid.
And I'm sure this is going to happen this year too, no matter what the results are, because anything can happen at these shows. But a lot of times, the biggest, the people who are shouting the loudest about like foul play or that these people, somebody doesn't deserve a placing or whatnot, whether it be the winner or whether it be third, whoever, they're usually people who are looking at just pictures on the internet. They're not actually there in person, because there is a disconnect there. When you are and I've had the fortune and the blessing to be able to go to Olympia for many years and be there right there, 10 feet off the stage and watch these guys perform and compete against each other. And you just lose something when you just see pictures. So that's why I'm very careful when I look at pictures and make judgment calls about someone's physique, that you lose that three-dimensional effect. You lose the 3D effect that you get when you're live there in person. And also you lose some of the energy that competitors bring to the stage. And that absolutely, don't kid yourself, that absolutely has an effect on judging and on audience and on the results. And how a competitor displays their physique, how they it's not just in their static poses. It's everything in between as well. So there's a lot to be said. And then of course, what was that?
Yeah, that's completely true, because I was at the New York Pro and I was front seat in the New York Pro, and people were saying Nathan and Juan Morel were very close, and those are people who are on the internet. If you were there, it was not that close. Right. I mean, it just wasn't. I mean, Nathan clearly won. Even though the scorecards didn't indicate that he won the morning, he did, in my eyes, he won the morning and he won the night. It was a really good show between both of them, but you can clearly, when you're there, you can clearly see the difference in muscle quality the difference in sweep, the differences in the legs and everything else. But when you're looking at it, and it depends when you're looking at it in pictures and everything, it depends on the quality of pictures. Some of the quality of pictures are really crappy. Some of them are really good. So, it's a very hard thing when people are like armchair, they're armchair, spectators, but there have been occasions at the Olympia that I completely disagreed with, and I was there, and I completely disagreed with what the judges said. But it's very rare, though. I have to say that most of the time the judges do get it right.
Well,
more so than they get it wrong.
Oh, well, I'd like to think that we do. But I will say, but I do leave room for personal bias, personal interpretation, that as a judge or even as a spectator, it doesn't matter. When somebody looks at a physique, we each appreciate different things about that physique, and nobody's right or nobody's wrong, But when you're at a contest and you're being judged by a particular judging panel, no matter who that is on that panel or not, you're subject to those proclivities, and that's the name of the game. Sorry, folks, we're not scoring touchdowns. It's not fair in that sense. It's not like you could have a different judging panel and get a different result probably. Maybe you wouldn't. Sometimes you won't, but many times you might. Places might get jogged around, and which one is correct? Well, the one that is judged at the time is correct. Like that's the correct one. It's like that's the one that got judged that day. That's how it rolled out for whatever reasons, and you kind of have to. That's the name of the game, and I think it's great to have these kinds of commentaries to talk about some of that stuff, but to say that. I just think it's in poor form when many people say things that it's unfair, or that it's not, or that it's that somehow they got it wrong. You can disagree. That's okay. I mean, I'm all for people like not agreeing, but I think that to say that it was like foul play or something like that, that's just going a little bit overboard. Like I don't think, because no one's ever told me I had to judge a certain way. I judge my heart. I judge what my eyes see. I judge what the knowledge that I have and experience that I have in the sport, and over the years, I judge based on the criteria that is set before me, and I do the best that I can, and I think that all of my counterparts that I know do the same. So, but having said that, go ahead.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I was on the treadmill the other day, and I forgot who it was that I was listening to, but he was commentating on the Wesley Vesser, winning, and he said, he goes, classic physique is one of those that, because his body looked like Arnold, he should win because his body looks like Arnold, and judges should be judging the way this way. Would you, if you had that body, would you want that body? So is it a body that you would want? I almost fell off the treadmill because I was like, you got to be kidding me.
I remember.
I mean,
I remember hearing that. And I thought
that's
that
how
was
you're going to judge.
I don't know. I kind of think that's who said that again?
I don't remember the guy's name, but this is the other funny part about it. He's never been to a bodybuilding show. Oh. He's never been to a bodybuilding show in his life, other than one that he competed in before, and he is going to the Olympia for the first time this year, because a lot of people were giving him a lot of guff because he had never been to a bodybuilding show before.
Oh, okay. Well.
So I'm hoping that his opinion changes a bit.
Well, I'm sure that he will. I'm sure it will be more informed when he attends his first Olympia. I'm sure.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if I were to judge that, then if I were to judge with that criteria, no lie, then Rolly Winkler would have been Mr. Olympia like at least 4 times. I mean, if I was going to judge it on that criteria,
right?
I mean, that's how ludicrous that sort of criteria would be. Judge them like you would want, like if you wanted that body. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean,
right, exactly.
That doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
I think that not enough people understand. The other thing is, I don't think that the MPC and the IFBB explain to the spectators what the judging criteria is.
Well, it's all over
the only person that I've ever seen explain it is Steve.
Oh.
So, and he did it in a video because of the Kai Green, Cedric McMillan thing.
Right.
And he said, this is the way that you judge this. This is the reason why Kai Green won. Because everybody likes to say, well, Kai Green won because of posing, the posing section.
Right.
Even if he did, that's part of the criteria. The posing section is part of the criteria at the Arnold. That doesn't take anything away from his win. But Steve went through basically all the criteria in order to make an informed judgment. And I think that's something that the IFBB and the NPC need to roll out to people who are bodybuilding enthusiasts.
Yeah,
what is the criteria, especially in classic bodybuilding?
I've always thought it would be cool. Now, I don't know if anybody else would think this is cool, but I always thought it would be cool at shows, and I would totally do this myself, for it to go and interview the judges and have them explain why they judged the way they did. Because I don't think I think all this stuff should be transparent. Right? If I stand behind all the scores that I've ever put down on a score sheet, and I'd be happy to explain why I felt that I put whatever number I put under whatever competitor. I'd be happy to do that. And I think it would help competitors, and I think it would help fans also understand why the judges are looking the way they are. And then there will be less, I think, animosity behind some of the decisions that are sometimes made, because I see it as completely fair. I see, and I don't. I mean, sometimes. Sometimes the results don't always roll out exactly the way that we think they should. Sometimes, even as a judge, I might be off on one or two here or there sometimes because my opinion was different, but it's all calculated into the whole mix of things, and that's why that's what creates this sort of veracity in the judging. But I think it would be cool to have to be able to from time to time either have a head judge or somebody go in but I think having interviews with judges would be great to be able to discuss this is the way I saw it. This is why I thought this person was good. This is why I thought this person should have won. This is why I voted. This is why I saw this person in second or third or whatever. And here's the things that I see that they need to work on or whatever. This would be a great way to give competitors, especially pros. You can't really do it with the amateurs. That'd be kind of hard because there's so many.
Right.
But some of the big shows and some of the pros, it would absolutely help, and it would absolutely clear up, I think, a lot of confusion and with the judging criteria, and help the competitors be clearer about what they want to bring to these shows in terms of their conditioning and what packages they're bringing to the show, so they can feel the most confident and the best that they can when they go to the shows. But that's just an idea.
I completely agree with you. I have a lot of respect for judging anyway, because I was looking at all the competitors, especially classic bodybuilding, men's physique, bikini, figure, women's bodybuilding, women's physique. That is a lot of people. I mean, they had a class that was 20-some people. I'm sorry, I do not understand how anybody keeps all of those physiques in front of them. If I've got 22 people, how do you keep that in front of you and remember, okay, number 21 that was 15 minutes ago, was outstanding. Let's go ahead and pull that person in the line. Well, I personally think that they should have a cutoff.
Well, they do have
competitors can be in each class.
Yeah, every judge has their own methodology that they use to, I'll take notes as I see competitors, rank them, give them scores, sort of speak, generalize things that help me remember exactly what stood out, what didn't, but give them sort of like a report card of sorts, and as you're going through, and then of course you're making notes whether or not because when you've seen enough competitors and you've seen enough pros, you get to see them all at once, and then you get to you can get to sort of pick out, make some notes, and pick out the ones you think should be in the top call out, and the second call out, and third call out. So it kind of organizes itself along the way, so to speak, and you do have to have that's the reason why most of these judges especially the pro judges, have a lot of experience doing this. It does take a bit of practice. It does take a bit of experience and practice of going through this process of doing this over and over and over. But yeah, you're right. I mean, like these days, it is getting tougher and tougher and tougher to keep to look at 20, 30 bodies and to be able to be as accurate as you can. So. But it definitely it's definitely not it's definitely not something that is for everybody. But
yeah, no, I mean,
but I'll tell you, it's tougher. It's actually, in my opinion, it's actually tougher on the amateur level. Pros are easy compared to the amateurs.
Oh yeah, well, pros have a cutoff in most cases. So
Well, it's in the amateurs. Let's take for instance like the North Americans or the Masters or the USA's, and you'll get a class like say at the Masters that has 40, 50 competitors. At the Nationals, I saw a men's physique would commonly have 30 plus 40 competitors. That is hard. Okay, so like you got a job in front of you, so you're just rifling through these competitors, and so at that level, sometimes it is very, very feasible for people to get overlooked because if they don't project themselves well right away, because it's your job as a competitor to do that. That's your job. It's not the judge's job to hunt down your physique and make sure that you are all the great qualities that you have that they see. You have to make sure that they see it. Like that's your job. You know what I mean? So your job is go up there and present your physique in a manner that is going to stand out for them and hit your poses and hold them and smile and communicate with the judges in the way that you can on stage. So that way they can make their notes and they can go, oh, okay, this one, we want to make sure this one gets the first call because that's the way it works. So it can get rough and it get a little dicey at those high levels. But I think in general, like Steve and Sandy and all these head judges Tim and everybody who's done this many times at the national levels at these big classes, it is a task, but it's been now that they've got a lot of experience these days doing it, and so I think that it's done pretty well considering the volume of people that's going through. But it is a challenge, and it is something that competitors have to take into consideration. That hey, man. That's why sometimes you have to wait your turn. It feels like that you just have to sort of get up there, get your face seen, show up in good shape, show up looking good, so that way, because believe it or not, even in a big class, judges do remember people's faces. I absolutely remember seeing people over and over and over. And you want those people to do well, like you want to, because most of the judges were competitors and at one point in their life, or they're close to competitors, and they definitely want to see people get rewarded for their hard work, for being true to the sport and making progress along the way. They absolutely do. This is not just because as a judge, man, I'm telling you, you don't make a lot of money doing this. It's not like we're doing this for the money. We're doing this because we love this stuff. So, promoters are making good money these days.
I want to point out something. Since you were talking about improvements and stuff like that and doing really well, I did want to point out one guy in the 212s.
Oh yeah,
Mike Ergis.
I was going to say he was the other guy, by the way, that I wanted to, because Silvio was the first guy. Then Mike, I followed for years since he was an amateur and turned pro, and we'd had a couple conversations about him. And he's another openly gay guy, and I really, really, really like Mike's physique. Always have. I loved it, and I think he's always been. And I didn't really know him, but I lived in California. I remember seeing him at the shows a lot, and he always looked thick and big. Man, I was always like, okay, wow, man, I want to look like that. But he was just about a foot shorter than me,
Right, exactly. Well, I'll tell you one thing. He came and peeled. And in this contest, he looked a lot better
he looked really
than he did in Indy.
Okay.
And he looked really good, and Jose Raymond prepped him, and Jose Raymond actually prepped Lloyd Dollar as well, convinced Lloyd Dollar to shrink down to 212, and both of his athletes did a really great job and everything. But I'm super happy that Mike did really well.
Well, the pictures I see of Mike here, he looks drier than I've seen him before. And he looks hard and dry, and that's good.
Yeah.
But the quality that I've always liked about his physique in the past was the fullness. He's got this really wonderful, tight, full look. And I don't know, because I'm only seeing pictures, but it looks like he kind of lost a little bit of that in this prep. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he kind of lost a little fullness, but I think it's because they wanted him to come in a lot more conditioned. So that would make sense that he probably lost a little bit of fullness, because, some people, when they come in for conditioning and everything, they get completely flat. They lose that sort of fullness, and he might be one of those guys. The other thing that I thought was that his biceps look a little smaller.
Small, yeah. What's up with that?
It could.
I noticed,
but it could be the way that he's posing them. Yeah, I don't know if it's the way that he's posing them or I don't know, but they look a little smaller.
So I would tell Mike, okay, love the physique, conditioning's great, but I'd like to see him go back to a little bit fuller look, but I don't like the way he does his front double bicep.
Yeah, I think it's the pose. At first, I thought it was because his biceps were smaller. But then I looked back at his indie, his indie appearance, and his biceps were fuller, and he was posing them differently. So I think it might be the way that he poses. And there's a lot of guys in this lineup that pose a little awkwardly, and therefore it kind of messes up, that particular their whole shape. Nicholas does a pose that does that, where he's slanted and he's doing a front double bicep, and it shows he does it in order to show off the fact that he has this small, tiny waist, and it's a very classic sort of move, but it's not the best look for him. It's the same thing with Mike.
Mike, I think he would look better just straight up and down. He has that kind of physique, and I think it would help him look more expansive, like open up more, because I think he's closing his physique off a little bit in his shoulders and in his lats a little bit when he does it this way. This is just and he drops his hands forward a little bit in this pose too, and it's the nature of the way he's doing it as well. And so whenever I'm always catching people doing this. Actually, I was talking to John De La Rosa about this too. When your fists drop forward a little bit, and it happens so easy. I used to do it all the time, and I would drop forward. I see pictures now and I cringe, because you got to get those fists behind your ears almost, so that your biceps stand up the tallest. And that's the way when you look at pictures, or when you look at somebody on stage hitting the front double bicep. When your fists are behind your ears, or at least at ear level, your biceps are generally going to be sitting up tallest. It's going to look the tallest and biggest. So your arms will look the fullest and biggest this way. Again, everyone's a little different. Like, some guys can get away with doing things slightly differently. Like, I think Phil Heath can pretty much hit his arms any way he wants, and they're going to look big. But guys like me, I got to do it a certain way. And I think guys like Mike, he has great arms. I never thought he had weak arms. So that's why I'm kind of shocked a little bit that I would see, okay, well, maybe, this pose, I don't like the way he's doing this pose. I think he's done it this way for a long time, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but I don't like it. I would say, Mike, let's work on something different. It's like,
but I mean, I thought his conditioning was very good, though. I thought he did a very good job. I think his posing was a little bit different.
Kudos to
his back
Jose
double bicep was very dodgy as well. But I thought he did a great job.
Yeah.
And then
Go ahead. Oh, it's the only critique. The only thing I would say in terms of conditioning, and that's just the picture that I'm looking at here, because I think the stuff I'm only seeing some of the pictures from on muscular development, and they really are not that great in terms of the quality. I can't really see all the details, but I can definitely see that, like, from the back, doesn't look like the detail is quite there that he needed.
No,
so
that's true. But I think also I saw the video, and I think it's the pose where they catch him on the pose, because I thought his back had a lot. I saw the video during pre-judging, and I thought his back had a lot of action on it. But in that picture, you're right; it doesn't look like it does. Yeah,
and then there's another shot of him doing back double bicep, and it's harder looking. So this tells me something, because whenever I see competitors, when they hit their shots and they're hard, and you can see the striations, and then when they relax, it looks soft. That usually tells me that they're a little on the flat side. So I think, and I'm just knowing what I've seen of Mike, I think he could do better. I would have hoped that he could have placed in the top 5. I think his physique is worthy of it, but he'll have to be fuller and tighter. He's just going to have to be fuller. So I don't know how close he was to that 212 mark. Did he have to? Do you know if he had to squeeze down?
No, he in fact he didn't have to squeeze into it during the Indy, so he was fine. Apparently, he was good to go. I think Jose in one of his vlogs said he was good to go a week or two before. So he could have gotten a little bit fuller. It could have been the way that they carved him up too. But I hope he continues. I think he is. I think he should. And I hope to see him next year because, I did like the fact I also like the fact that he didn't stop. He kept on going he committed for the whole year and, he finished strong. So, congratulations to him. Really.
Yeah. Good for Mike. I'm so glad to see him back on the scene again because he had an absence for a while in terms of competing, doing other stuff, I think, in his life. But, now it's kind of cool. Now, maybe as we were talking earlier, maybe we'll have him on the show talking about other kinds of issues in the sport and stuff like that. It sounds like because I'm always interested in, like we were talking about before. Like you said, he was active in some gay rights or human rights or something of that.
Right.
And I would love to talk about that stuff. Because for me, anytime, human rights or just being able for each of us to live the kind of lives that we want in a joyful manner, in a loving manner is my end game for everybody. And so I'm always wanting to add my energy to those conversations if I could. So maybe we'll have him on the show if we can and talks about some of this stuff as it pertains to the issues that he works with and some of the people that he's working with to help solve some of these things.
Yeah, I'll talk to him, see if he'll get on the line with us.
Cool.
I did have one more honorable mention, not in the 212s, but I know we're not going to talk about classic bodybuilding, but classic bodybuilding did go on today, and the guy who most impressed me was a guy named Keon Pearson. This guy, every time he poses, it does not matter what shot, he does a vacuum.
Oh.
I have never seen that before in my life. It could be any pose, and he vacuums. He almost beat, he almost beat Henry Pierre-Arnaud, who used to be an open competitor, who's, very tall in structure and everything, has a beautiful structure out of Canada.
How did he do? Did he do well?
He actually... Henry was number 1, and Keon was number 2.
Okay.
And this guy Keon is truly a kid. I think he's in his 20s, if I'm not mistaken. He might not even be in his 20s, but I know he's probably in his 20s. But he's got a phenomenal physique. I mean, if they think that Steve Ladders is an up and comer, this kid, I think he's better, actually.
Oh, wow.
I think it's just wacky that you can pull a vacuum no matter what the pose is. That's just crazy. That should be genetically impossible, actually.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to go look at some pictures here and see what you're recognizing because I don't know. I haven't seen him, so I don't know. I don't know the guy. I don't know what he looks like. So, but these days it seems that a lot of the newer guys are more cognizant of waistlines and of being able to do vacuum poses and stuff like that. And it probably has a lot to do with being in the classic. The classic division has gotten so popular, and that this is one of those sort of telltale things because the criticisms, the heavy criticisms of all the guts. You know what I mean? And you can't do a vacuum. A lot of guys in the open classes, they can't do anything close to a vacuum. Right? I mean, it's like it's just
no.
And and some of it is there's lots of sort of guesses as to what is the reasons why, like GH gut, you name it, but there's when you gain the kind of weight and attract the kind of muscle that it takes to get on stage at like 260, 70 pounds and sometimes more. It's just, it gets prohibitively impossible to do some stuff like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if you can do that, I think the only guy that I've ever seen in the open right that's done it is Heidi Schuppen. And when he was at the Open in San Marino with Cedric, he did a vacuum now granted, Heidi, he wasn't 238 pounds or anything to that effect, but it was still pretty impressive. But I just sent you an email with the link. You got to see this kid. This kid is he is impressive.
Okay, let me see. I got
really
it right here. I think I know who you're talking. Black kid, is that what?
Yeah.
Short guy. You know what he reminds me of? Who? Texas. Gosh, and I even know the guy. I just saw him. I forgot.
Are you talking about the he retired?
Yeah. He got his pro card.
What's his name? I know who you're talking about. Garrett? No, not Garrett.
No. Anyways, he does it back and everything. He was number 72. Yeah, he looks awesome. Short.
Yep.
Yeah. But he didn't. How did he place? Do you know? I don't see his placing here.
He was. He placed second, actually.
Okay, second. So I see the guy who got first. He looks awesome. The taller guys.
Yeah, the guy.
That seemed to be
the guy that got first. He has the wingspan of like an eagle.
Well, he also when he does his poses, he also, and I don't know the guy's name either. I hate to Henry Pierre. Yeah, Henry Pierre. Yeah. So he has a good look. He's always smiling. His midsection is bone dry tight, and his everything. There's no body parts that are too outrageous. Like nothing's overdeveloped. And he has a slightly taller frame, and he's crisp. So I would say that they did that. That was a good call. It was like absolutely good call.
Oh yeah, it was a good call. I mean, definitely. He was spot on. Now, how tall is Arash?
Arash is, I think he's about 5'8.5", 5'9", something like that.
5'9", okay. Because Henry Pierre, I believe, is about 6 feet.
Yeah, he looks tall.
He's really tall. Yeah, but he holds his poses sort of like Arash.
Right.
Especially his back double.
Oh,
so,
yeah. And that's.
There's some similarities there.
Yeah, you're talking about Keon or Henry?
No, I'm talking about Henry.
Oh, Henry. Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be one of the things.
If Keon actually held that pose like that, his back would look a lot better.
A lot better. Yeah. It looks like he needs to, and that's common for people who, if you notice in the pictures, at least the ones that I'm looking at, Keon is dropping his chin when he does his back double bicep, and when people do this, they roll their upper back, and it totally blows the pose. Okay, because you can't bring out the detail. Look, if you look at when you look at some of the other guys, you look at Henry Pierre, where he's doing it perfectly. His head is straight. He's looking straight forward, and so he's able to contract all the trapezius, all trace minor, all those muscles in the upper back that you're trying to show off. Whereas you look at Keon, and you can see that he lacks the detail in the mid part of the back of the trapezius and stuff. So, and it's because he can't contract it because his head's dropped.
Well, do you think it's because Henry used to be an Open competitor, and he's been competing for like several years in the Open?
I think it's that.
I think he has a slight advantage.
Well, just judging from what I can see on these pictures, every pose I see Henry Pierre, his posing is great. He's perfect. He's in the pose that he wants to be in. That tells me that this dude has practiced his posing over and over and over. These other guys, they didn't practice. I don't think they practiced as much. Maybe they did, but certainly they could have practiced more. Because had they would know. Yeah. You could feel, when you do enough posing, as much posing that I've done at least, you can feel when your body is in the right position. You know it. It's just it becomes very autonomic. You don't have to think about it, and you can always tell because look at the competitors when they hit their front poses. The ones that look like it's effortless and they're smiling, and the ones that aren't smiling, they didn't practice because they're thinking. You shouldn't be thinking. All the thinking's done. You know, you should be posing. You should be hitting your pose. You should be going out there communicating your emotion to the judges, saying, look at me, I'm the winner. I look good. I'm awesome. Well, some of these other guys look like deer caught in headlights, you know, like it's like, and these guys are supposed to be fucking pros. And I'm not trying to blast them. I'm just saying, hey man, like pose, man. If you know your poses, if you're like, I'm looking at this front double bicep picture that they posted on Muscular Development Forum, and it's got Keon and it's got Henry Pierre standing next to each other. They're all doing the front double bicep with the other top four guys or whatever. And he's, you know, Pierre's smiling. He looks like, man, this is what I do every day. And Keon looks like he's a deer caught in headlights. Looks like he's about ready to get run over by a truck. And it's like, and he looks good. He looks good. I could tell he's thinking. I don't want a competitor who looks like he's thinking about like solving algebraic equations on stage, you know, like when he's trying to hit a pose. Like, I want him to like, you know, I want him to communicate with the judges. He needs to be making eye contact, and like really, really, really like he needs to be there in the moment, man. Like, where are you, bro? Like, where are you? He's got a great physique. This guy should be doing really, really wonderfully. He's got a great physique and he can do better, but some of his poses are off. He probably should practice more. And I would also say, probably work on it. His legs, he's got these big legs, man. His legs are very thick. Yeah. And, he probably should pose that pose slightly differently, just slightly different so that he can get the aesthetic quality of his physique come out more. That's all.
But this is his first pro outing. So I think he did really well for his first pro outing and everything. And I'm excited to see, you know, how well he does and what he does. Because this is the end of his year. You know, he was one and done. He's not going to make the Olympia stage. There's just way too much, too many competitors in classic bodybuilding. That, you know, even if he made it, if I were him, I probably would not go. I probably would be a spectator and learn.
Oh, I don't know. You got to go, man, right? That's how.
I have to say that I was not a huge believer of classic bodybuilding because I like the freaks, and I'm a 212 guy because I'm 5'4". And everything, but I have to admit, I'm really excited about the Olympia for the Open, the 212, and the Classic, and that's unusual for me because normally I'm going there for 212. It's been like that for several years where, you know, I go there for 212 because the Open is predictable.
Right.
I really don't see where any of these divisions are going to be predictable at all. Yeah, okay. I will give it to, you know, you probably, even though you and I disagree. I think that Rami is going to win. You think that Phil's going to win. But it would not surprise me if I'm not going to be in shock if Phil wins. You know? And I already know that it's a foregone conclusion that Flex is going to win because Flex is crazy.
Oh, Flex, yeah. Well, there's nobody right now, unless Flex just totally fucks shit up and goes there looking like hell, which he never does, and it's just not in his kind of prep and his character to show up looking like anything but his best. Even when he was sick and had like stomach issues several years ago, he still smoked everybody. And a lot of people didn't know what was going on. But yeah, you're right. And I do my prediction, and we'll do a whole show on that. But of course, I think that Phil's going to win. I don't think there's anybody right now that's really going to be able to beat him. I just don't believe it. But it's possible. It's not that it can't happen. It's just that it's just that the trajectory of where the athletes are going right now. There's only two athletes that I think have the remote opportunity to be able to actually pull out a surprise win. And that is, I think that Sean Roden can, if he really, really pulls himself together based on previous year's experience, previous year's outings. He can, if he really, I think he has an opportunity to do that. I really do. Rami does. I think he really does. I don't think he will. I just don't think that he's there yet. I don't think that his body I don't think his mind is there. We talked about this in previous conversations. I think he's getting better. He's getting closer. I just don't think it's quite there yet. And at that level, it takes more than genetics. It takes more than the right physique. It takes all that, and it takes a mindset that is a champion's mindset. Is something that looks like, and I've said this before, that looks like arrogance from a distance. And from the perspective of somebody who doesn't have self-confidence, it looks a lot like arrogance. People talk about Phil being arrogant and such, and that's what it sounds like. It sounds like when asked what's going to happen at the Olympia, it sounds like I'm going to kick everyone's ass. That's what it sounds like. But it's it's got to be your truth. It's got to be your truth. You got to believe it. You got to feel it. It's got to be your truth in your life before it can become a reality for the rest of the world. It can't be like, oh, I'm going to go do my best. Okay, well, that's what losers do. They do their best too. You know, and I don't mean to call anybody a loser. That's not it. You know me. I'm not like that. But what I'm saying is that everybody else is going to do that already. Everyone's going to do their best. Like, so what makes you different? Your genetics? Okay, well, everybody on that stage is great genetics. Everybody, okay? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Brandon Curry, fucking, this dude's got genetics coming out of his wazoo, right? Like, Rami, awesome. You know, like all these guys, you know, they're fucking great. You know, like these guys are one in a bazillion, you know, genetic, material showing up on stage, right? So what makes you different? It's what's between the ears, man. It's how you approach every day. It's the attitude that you take, and that we know now. And I've talked about this a little bit. We know now with the science of neuroplasticity and with the and neuroscience that they're studying these epigenetics that talks about how your genes express themselves based on your thoughts, and it's absolutely predictive. You actually affect how your genes express themselves, the effects of how your body, the changes your body can make, and what you present is affected by how you think. And whether people want to believe it or not, that's the science. That's the real truth. That is absolutely the truth out there. And we're seeing more and more and more evidence of this, or doing lots of more research on this. And it just so happens that guys who are out there smoking stuff, out there just killing it in whatever arena they're in, basketball, baseball, bodybuilding, they sound like arrogant. They sound cocky. Why? Because it's kind of, in some ways, the mindset it takes. You have to have it's got to be your knowledge that I'm the best. I know it. I feel it. It's the energy that I resonate every day. And man, damn it, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to show everybody. It's just like, what is it? Conor McGregor used to say, I love this dude, right? This dude, he's awesome. Like, he goes in there and he just kills people, right? And literally he's trying to. But that part I don't like. But when he's out there in the ring and he's fighting fair, he make predictions. And people are like, how are you doing this? Like, how do you go out there and like make a prediction and make it happen? He's like, and he would say things like, it's already done before I get in the ring. I've already seen it. I already feel it. It's already been done. I already know it. I feel like it's already done. All I got to do is go in there and push play on the push play on the VHS, if you will, and let the tape run, because that's what's going to happen. Like, man, to me, like he's a creator, like we all are. He's just making his history happen, and that's the way when you're at that level. The level of the Olympia, the level of the Conor McGregor's, at the level that these top. I'm not talking about the nationals. I'm not talking about like some local regional show. I'm talking about the level of the Olympia, where out of millions of bodybuilders in the world, you got 30 guys, 20-something guys that are on stage trying to get that title, and really only a couple of them have a shot. Okay, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, definitely.
And it's because these guys are special. They're special and they know it. And it sounds really, really bizarre to the common folk, because the common folk don't think like that. And that's why they're the common folk. I hate to say it like that, because I'm not trying to diminish anybody. I'm just trying to say that if you want that kind of result in your life, then it's the kind of mindset that I believe that it takes to get there is one that really, really sees your greatness already. It's you have already realized it within you, and you're just going to live it out. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter who's you're up against. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's called faith in yourself. People say they have it, but they're looking for proof every day to justify it, and that's not faith. And that's why.
And that's that's one of the reasons why I will give you. I'm not going to say that they're going to beat Phil. I'm going to say instead that they have the mentality that if it's not Phil, they will be Olympia champions or at least Arnold champions. And
who's that?
One of them, of course, is going to be Rami. The other one's going to be Rolly. And the other one is going to be Brandon Curry. And the fourth one is going to be Charles Griffin.
Oh, wow. Okay. I would
because
say
Charles Griffin, and the reason why I say Charles Griffin is I showed you a picture of Charles Griffin a couple of months, or I think it was 3 or 4 months ago. And you were like, oh, okay, well, it was before the Nation Pro. If you see one now, he looks flat out phenomenal. His body improves so quickly. And he has that mentality, too. And he loves bodybuilding. He truly loves what he does. And when he gets on stage, it's like when he walked on the stage at Indy, he was like, I've won this. He's got the same type of mentality as Nathan D'Asher, where D'Asher was at the New York Pro. And the way he came out was, before prejudging, before he could even do a pose, it was like, why are you people here? and
he's thick.
And Charles is not a cocky guy.
No.
But I think he knows what his ability is, and he's been through a lot of struggles, so you're not going to break him. And that's one of the reasons why I think he will be a champion. But those are my four. I'm not saying that they're going to beat Phil. I'm just saying
I think
those are the four that I think will win the Olympia or the Arnold.
I'll tell you the guy who I think has got the closest, who I think right now has the closest from last year, from what I've seen last year to this year, who I think has the closest shot, and that's William Bonnick. We haven't really mentioned him, and I really have been, every year I get more and more impressed with him, and I think that while he doesn't have this, he doesn't have the same stature as Phil or as some of the other guys in this, the guys that we've been talking about. Man, he's so impressive. You just can't not look at him when he's on stage. He's like really, really, especially the dude just has just incredible, and it comes in incredible condition. Neil Hill, I believe, is still working with him, of course, and he just does a wonderful job with him. And but I think his physique, his muscles just pop, and they're bulbous, and you can't help it. And he just shines when he's up there, man. And he does have a champion's mentality. I know he does. And he's absolutely certain of his goodness, of his greatness, and that's what it takes. So I think, in my mind, in terms of like the three guys I mentioned, William Bonnick, of course, and Rami and Sean Roden are the three that I think have the highest probability of coming the closest to knocking Phil off. But we'll see. I still think Phil's going to win. I think he's too far ahead. I think and I also think that he's got so much momentum going with his physique and with him being the reigning Mr. Olympia, 7 times now, right?
Yep.
7 times. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Honorable mention before we close out this first show. Honorable mention.
Wait, before we do that, I have a trivia question for you. That since you mentioned Bonnick,
okay, hold on.
Who was the last guy to beat Bonnick?
Who was the last guy to beat him?
Who was the last?
Is that
Who was the last guy to beat Bonnick? Yeah, before Bonnick went to prep. Who was the last guy to beat Bonnick?
Good question. I don't know. Who is it? Who?
Rolly Winkler.
Oh, I was going to say Rolly, maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember,
I mean, you said.
Yeah, but
that was Winkler went into that show and stole people's lunch. So,
well, Rolly doesn't. I've never really, and I know you love Rolly Winkler, and I've never really been. His physique has gotten better. Like, he's posing better. So that has helped, and that has always hurt him in my eyes in terms of me picking him as a favorite or something. I think he's one of those physiques that you can't help it but go, damn, like shit. He's just fucking freaky. I mean, just so he's so impressive from that perspective. I'm not taking anything away from that, but obviously it takes more than just being a freakazoid to win the Mr. Olympia. I don't think he's got a shot at winning the Mr. Olympia, but I do think he is easily a top fiver, no problem. And I think, especially if he's making the same improvements, that he could really, really do some serious damage and cause some problems for any of the top 5 guys, for sure. Absolutely. Because he's not a person. But the guy that I was going to say, the honorable mention, and it's because I'm good friends with him, but also I've always liked his physique, and I've always thought he had great promise. And that's Steve Kuklo, and he's looking so good this year. He's looking better and better and better.
Great, yeah.
So I really hope that
he is. In fact,
well, I don't think he's going to win.
I thought he got placed badly. at the Arnold.
Oh.
I thought his placing should have gone up at the Arnold. He looked fantastic at the Arnold. I was super impressed with him. All 3 of those guys that we're talking about, though, have the same problem, and that's back thickness in the lower back.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I don't think Roden has a shot in heck of ever beating Phil. Because I don't think he can bring up his back.
Sometimes when you make a show, when you don't make the best showing that judges and fans know that you can make, and then you go and you really, really nail it. It can really mark an occasion, and that would be one of those things where with that kind of energy and with that kind of, it could make a difference for him too. So you never really, because I'm always impressed with him when he gets on stage, man. I'm like, wow, man. When you talk about, I forget who you said, when you looking at physiques and saying, I would choose the guy that I would want to look like. Well, guess what? He's the guy I would want to look like. It's like, so Sean Roden has a physique that. What was that?
His version 2 years ago, where I thought that he should have at least placed, he placed second. I was there at the Olympia that year, and I thought he beat Phil, hands down. And a lot of people in that arena thought that he beat him. I love that look. That was a great look. I think he could have been a little bit fuller, but I thought it was a great look for him. But last year's look was a horrible look for him. Now, he corrected it at the night show. But the prejudging was a horrible look for him.
Well, the last couple of years, ironically, in his defense, I'm not trying to make any excuses for him, because I don't think you do what you do, right? But everybody knows. I don't know if you read, or I'm sure most people in the industry know now, that he had ulcer issues, almost died.
Mm-hmm.
And these kind, and so that can really affect his eating, and all that kind of really affected. So, and he hasn't been at Olympia in several years where he's been 100% healthy, that he even knew of. Like, he didn't even realize that he was bleeding on the inside, And he and I actually talked about it, and I was and I'm sort of coaching him a little bit with the mindset stuff. I was just sort of giving him my 2 cents and helping him a little bit, because he struggled with some of that stuff in the past. And when we talked about it, I really feel that if his mind is good and his body's healthy, like it sounds like his body's really healthy right now. I'm hoping it is. At least it sounded like it was. Then he has we may see a different Sean, a Sean that we should have seen in the last few years. So, because I think I really do think that he does have the kind of physique that's worthy of an Olympia. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. This is, again, a whole other show that we could talk about. But
yeah, and I did notice that you did not mention Cedric, which
and again, another whole other topic.
I saw the Toronto. So the Toronto, I don't know what happened there.
Again, like, that's another story. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I've had fun on this first episode of the Tad Low report, or just a Tad Low. I think we're going to go with it. Maybe we'll come up with something that we really, really like. But no matter what, and I think we're going to have. You and I talked about having some other pieces in the show, like we talk about some gyms and different things of that nature, where we have different segments. Let's leave. We're running out of time today, but I think we'll talk. We'll have some segments where we talk about, give some recommendations for our best gym spots and across the country, depending on what shows we're talking about or where we're at. Maybe even some places to eat. I don't know. We'll let the show grow organically. But so far, I think we had a great talk about Tampa, a little bit of prelude for the Olympia predictions, because that's coming up, and then of course the next time, who knows what we'll talk about next time.
Exactly. Well, we might have to talk about. We didn't talk about the Open because that's tomorrow. So I guess we could talk about the Open.
We'll talk about it. Yeah.
My pick is Alex Rivera. So we'll see how Alex does.
Yeah, I'm looking at the lineup, and Alex Rivera, he's probably one of my old clients and friends on Win, even though he hasn't ever really done well. I hope he does good. I really do. He's got such great potential. See, a lot of guys like this that I know in the industry, who are such wonderful competitors, such wonderful, they have such great potential and then seem to just fizzle at the contest. And this is one of the things that I tell people, like, you can look great in the gym. You can look great on Instagram. You can look great in pictures. You can look great out there in the real world, but you gotta look good on stage on that day at that moment. And it's hard. This is not an easy science. So, but we'll see.
It's not, because when I was just starting out and everything, I used to look at Dennis James videos before going and working out. And, and Dennis James looked so great in the gym. And then when he got on stage, it was just a different look.
I like it.
And so
I was a fan too.
I still thought Dennis James's look, on stage was really good, but it's impressive when it's in the gym, Yeah. So I think On has that same sort of thing, but I mean, he has beautiful lines. He's got a beautiful physique. He just needs to dial it in a little bit, and he would do well.
Before he got his pro card, I coached him for a couple of years, brought him up when he was nobody, and got him to the pro level. And he was On is an interesting guy. I like him a lot. He's a wonderful guy. We're still good friends, and he really does have some really wonderful genetics for the sport, really wonderful lines. He's got all the right body parts. You know what I mean? And he's got a tiny waistline. He just seems to not get in shape. And I know, but again, like, regardless of the reasons why or not, when somebody becomes a consistent failing in an athlete's career, most athletes will go and they'll change coaches, or they'll go but I think there's oftentimes something more intrinsic to the athlete, that they really need to go in. They need to look inward and figure out what are they resisting, what in their prep, in the way they approach their prep or their diet or their whatever, and so that way they can sort of start to perhaps do something different in a way that will. And sometimes it's things that they don't want to do. It's things that they resist because they don't believe that it will work, or they don't believe that it'll be good for them. I remember having lots of discussion. On hated the volume training, man. He never wanted to do it. I was like, fuck, I had to force him to do shit, and he didn't like to do it. And quite frankly, in my opinion, he was a lot drier when I was working with him, and we were winning shows, and his first USAs, we got like third, I think, and he did great. And I remember his only comment after the show was he was happy, but his only comment was, man, do we have to do so much volume? He likes to do it heavyweight. He's like one of those, he's just old school. He likes to go in there and pump heavy iron, and that's what he wants to do. And I get it. Time and place, though, time and place. There's I think for certain physiques, it can probably be okay, but for the most part, I'm just a big fan of volume training, especially when it comes closer to the show. I just, don't get hurt and get the blood going, pump those muscles. But more importantly, get up, got to use those nutrients, got to use them up, got to expunge that glycogen. You got to make sure your body's pushing, cranking through stuff. And it really does, in my opinion, help people get really grainy. I think it does. So, but regardless, he resisted some of that stuff. So I think that people need to sort of sometimes look at what they're resisting so they can really analyze it. Even if they don't change it, they should at least analyze it, be sort of systematic about it. So that way they can really truly, to me, that's a champion's mindset, to say, hey, what am I doing? and what could I do, and what, some of these things I may have to revise, or, and do some things I don't want to do. But don't focus on what you don't want to do, about what you don't like, about what you don't want to do. Focus on what you're going to get out of it.
Well, Brad Rowe is like that as well. I mean, I think that Brad Rowe has this very tiny waist, and he's got, great legs and everything else. But for years, people have been saying, your upper body needs to match your lower body and everything. And so, I've seen some training videos with him that, he's trying to do so, but I'm not sure that the techniques or whatever, it's not quite working for him. But he always comes in shredded, so you can't really say anything about his conditioning or anything to that effect. It's just that his upper body and his lower body don't mesh. But he's got such a wonderful line and everything. He's got a nice physique. If he were more balanced, he would fare a lot better in shows. He did fare a lot better in Chicago. He did a lot better in Chicago. But I mean, his career is going up. I did hear that Brad Rose to take some time off and everything, and I guess there's speculation that he might go into classic bodybuilding. So
he might do well there. He might do well there.
I think he would. I think he would. I mean, I think his body looks very classical. The way he poses, is sort of classical as well. I could very well see it. That's a guy that can actually pull off a vacuum, without even thinking about it. So,
Well, I would give him the same advice I would give anybody asking me what division they should do or what kind of choices they should make, and that is follow your heart. Make sure you love it, because I know that success, when it comes to success in any endeavor in our life, it is a success always rides the coattails of joy. So when you're having fun, then you can't. It's hard to stop somebody. So that's what I would say. Well, episode 1 down of the Tad Low report, if you will. And next week we'll talk about the open stuff. And I think maybe we'll just go ahead and do like maybe a prelude to some maybe the Olympia, maybe, or we'll come up with something, but probably something to do with the Olympia. Maybe we'll do. I know you don't like to talk about women, but we'll do maybe figure and.
It's not that I don't like talking about women. It's just very hard for me, and maybe you can help me. It's very hard for me to gauge women because, to me, it's a bodybuilding show, and there's certain divisions that I think should be muscular. And then you're told, they don't want the women to be so muscular. And so that becomes confusing in their divisions. So it's more of an educational thing for me, more so than anything else. But as far as the Olympia, though, are you going to the Olympia? Because I just got my ticket.
Okay. Well, I typically go, and I work with the NBC News online doing some of the reporting and stuff like that. So I do that. So my assumption is I'm going again this year. I'm pretty sure of it. So I didn't have any plans not to. So, and I like going because I like to see my friends, and I like, of course, this is my job. This is what I do. So,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I know you went to the Arnold.
Yeah.
But I guess you were at the Olympia last year, right? Because you did
I've been at the Olympia
you did the commentary with Chris Aceto, right?
Yeah, and I've been at the Olympia for the last over 10 years straight. So like every year, so I'm always there. So it's kind of the funny thing is I remember my first Olympia years ago, and I remember being so like in awe, right? And now it's almost, I won't say it's old hat because every year I still get excited. I still want to go, and I still love going, but it definitely has morphed and changed, from my perspective. And every year, even today, I still feel so fortunate, so lucky to be able to go and participate in a meaningful way and to be able to add my 2 cents, my value to the sport that I love so much, that I've made my life. It's just one of those things that I just truly feel honored and thankful for. So I appreciate it deeply. So this sport has been absolutely good to me, and it continues to be.
No, I completely agree with you because, actually this sport has saved my life because I was 350 pounds when I got out of when I got out of college. So I was 21 and I was 350 pounds. And I actually got obsessed with bodybuilding. I had a trainer who challenged me a great deal and everything. And then I became completely obsessed by it. And it allowed me not to have high blood pressure and diabetes. I escaped everything, all of the diseases that plagued my family. So it really did save my life. And bodybuilding actually helped me through my mom's death last year, because I went to the Arnold, which the Arnold to me is like Christmas or Hanukkah for my purposes, Christmas for your purposes.
Right.
And the biggest thing about last year's Arnold was I was in the dumps because my mother had died a month before, and I saw Rolly Winkler. And there's a picture of me and Rolly together, and that was the first time I had smiled in a month.
Oh.
And he cracked a joke because, as you know, I go to Curacao every New Year's. And he said to me, "So you're the one guy who goes to Curacao every year." And the way that he said it in his broken English, it was funny, and we're both laughing. And so I have, I'm very fortunate that I get to go to a lot of shows and everything, and get to meet a lot of people. And the one thing that I did want to do with this sort of platform is give back to bodybuilding, because it did save my life. And some of these people that actually compete every day, they're amazing people. They're not just amazing athletes, but they're amazing people when you talk to them and everything. They're just not bodies. They actually have, they actually have knowledge, and they have opinions about things. And I just want people to understand that.
Oh, well, that's good. I mean, I think everybody's got, most people have a story behind their bodybuilding, behind their endeavors in the stuff. And I'm so, and I in this sport, it seems like a lot of people have some really wonderful stories to tell, and how bodybuilding's affected their life and fitness and so forth. And I think that's the nature of what we do when we try to change ourselves through a sport like bodybuilding, because that's what I know that's the reason why I got involved with it, was I wanted to become something that I thought that I wasn't. The good news for me is that it was an evolutionary process. Figuring out, changing my body didn't really change me, but it started me on a path that allowed me to really, really, really sort of know who I am and uncover in a more fuller way, the goodness that I know that I am. And bodybuilding was really the initiator of all that. So it really helped. And so for me, it absolutely helped me. And I wouldn't say, I can't say that it saved my life. I mean, in that same direct way, but probably in some ways, absolutely gave me purpose. Gave me such purpose in my life. So I'm thankful too. So good. Well, again, episode 1 down, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in. For me, Tad the Diet Coach, and Nigel Lomax, the low part of the Tad Low report.
Yep.
And we'll be back.
And I'm gonna wish you a Shabbat Shalom. And,
of course, Shabbat Shalom.
Have a good weekend.
Yes, everybody have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back next week.